welcome. All right, today let's talk about something every language learner has run into, that massive gap between what you learn in the classroom and what you actually hear out in the real world. We're going to break down why that gap exists and, more importantly, figure out what you can actually do to bridge it.
So, does this sound familiar? You're acing your tests, you can read and write pretty well, but the second you try to listen to a native speaker or maybe watch a movie without the subtitles on, it all just kind of turns into this mush. If that's you, trust me, you are not alone. And there is a really good reason for this feeling.
You know, at its core, the whole problem is just a total mismatch. What we learn in class is often this, museum-quality version of a language. It's perfect, it's polished, it's behind glass. But the language people actually speak, well, that's a living, breathing, and kind of messy thing.
Okay, let's just look at this side by side. Over on the left, you've got your textbook language. It's all scripted, spoken perfectly clearly, edited to perfection, and usually you only hear one standard accent. But then, you look at the right. That's reality. Real speech is spontaneous, it's messy. It's what researchers call a first draft, full of pauses, ums, and uhs, and a whole world of different accents. It's totally unplanned, and that one difference, that's the source of pretty much all the trouble.
So what exactly is this messiness that makes real-life speech so tricky? Well, it's not just random noise. They're actually patterns to the chaos, and once you start to recognize them, well, it changes everything.
So a researcher named Elvis Wagner came up with a fantastic way to think about this. He basically said, hey, let's stop thinking about speech as good or bad. Instead, picture a spectrum, right? A continuum of scriptedness. Way over on one end, you've got a super rehearsed news report. And on the total opposite end, you've got a casual, spontaneous chat with a friend. Most of the speech you hear in real life is going to fall somewhere in the middle.
First up, we've got something with a bit of a fancy name, hesitation phenomena. But all this really means are those little filler words and sounds people make while their brain is playing catch-up. You know, ums, us, like, you know? In our textbooks, these are almost always edited out. But in real life, they are a totally normal, essential part of how we think and talk at the same time. For a learner, though, they're like these little invisible traps you never even knew were there.
And this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. Because learners almost never hear these fillers in their lessons, they are completely unprepared when they show up. You might even mistake an for a new word you don't know, and it can totally throw you off course, when really, it's just the sound of someone thinking.
Okay, next up is something called connected speech. This happens in every single language, all the time, but we rarely ever talk about it. It's when words just kind of blend into each other. Sounds change, they merge, sometimes they even disappear. It's the reason spoken language doesn't sound like a neat little string of separate words.
Yeah, gonna is the classic example that everyone knows, but think about it, this stuff is everywhere. What are you doing becomes what you doing. I don't know becomes I don't know. Your ear is listening for one thing, but the speaker is saying something that sounds completely different. Now multiply that by hundreds of different combinations and you can see why it gets so confusing.
And of course, there's the speed. Take a look at this chart. On the far left, you've got that slow, scripted audio from your language class. And look, your comprehension is way up high. But as you move to the right, to normal, and then fast, unscripted speech, that comprehension line just plummets. It's a classic trade-off. The more real the speech gets, the harder it is to understand.
So all of this leads to one massive question, right? If we all know that real speech is this messy, spontaneous thing, then why are our learning materials so relentlessly clean?
It really feels completely backward, doesn't it? Our goal is to communicate in the real world, but the tools we're given seem to be designed for some other imaginary world. Well, as it turns out, there are some pretty specific, though maybe not great reasons for this.
A lot of it comes down to control and just tradition. For the people who make tests, scripted audio makes their lives easier. It makes sure there's only one right answer. Then you have this kind of old-fashioned idea that fillers, like sound unprofessional. But honestly, the biggest reason is probably fear. Publishers are afraid that if they use real, messy audio, it'll just frustrate and discourage new learners.
And the result of all that? The very tests that are supposed to prove you know a language are often measuring the wrong skill entirely. They're testing how well you do in a clean, sterile, lab-like environment, not how ready you are for a real, messy, human conversation.
Okay, so we spent a lot of time defining the problem. Now for the most important part, what can we actually do about it? Let's turn all this awareness into some real action.
Here is a simple 3-step plan. Step 1, you have to seek out the mess.
Don't run from it. Go find unscripted stuff, podcasts, vlogs, interviews, and start training your ear. Step 2, study with transcripts. This is so important. It lets you see what those messy sounds actually look like on the page. And finally, step 3, focus on interaction. Get beyond just listening by yourself. Practice real, two-way conversations that force your brain to process all this stuff in real time.
So this really requires a huge mental shift. The goal is not to wish that the world would start talking like your textbook. No. The goal is to train your own ear to become an expert at decoding the real world so you can anticipate the pauses, navigate the shortcuts, and just ride the natural flow of a conversation.
So as we start to wrap this up, if there's one big thing to take away from all this, it's that your path to true fluency, it's not going to be found in some perfect, polished audio file.
So remember this. Real fluency, it's not about perfection. It's about resilience. It's about being confident enough to jump into that messy, chaotic, totally beautiful river of real conversation, and just knowing that you can handle it. That is what we're aiming for.
So I'll leave you with a little challenge. Don't wait. What is one real, unscripted, messy thing you can go listen to today? Start training your ear for the world as it actually is. I really hope this helped, and thanks for joining me.